A doctor diagnoses a patient based on the most common explanation for the symptoms and misses a rare but serious condition. A jury weights vivid eyewitness testimony over dry statistical evidence. Both made the same error, letting mental shortcuts override systematic analysis. Cognition refers to all mental activities associated with thinking, knowing, remembering, and communicating. How we represent problems, the strategies we use to solve them, and the biases that distort our judgment are among the most studied topics in all of psychology. Concepts are the mental categories we use to group objects, events, and ideas that share common properties. They are the building blocks of thought. Prototypes, the most typical examples of a concept, allow rapid categorization. A robin is a more prototypical bird than an ostrich. Algorithms are step-by-step procedures that guarantee a correct solution when followed precisely. A recipe, a mathematical formula, a systematic search through all possible moves in chess, all are algorithmic. Algorithms are reliable but slow, especially when the problem space is large. Heuristics are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb that allow quick, efficient, but not infallible, problem solving. We use heuristics constantly because they save cognitive effort. Most of the time they work well. But systematic biases arise when heuristics lead us astray in predictable ways. Insight is the sudden realization of a problem solution after a period of apparent non-progress. Gestalt psychologists studied insight extensively, describing the aha moment when a problem restructures itself in the mind. Brain imaging shows a burst of right temporal lobe activity at the moment of insight. Incubation refers to the process by which stepping away from a difficult problem can facilitate its solution. When you stop consciously working on a problem, unconscious processing continues. Returning to it fresh often yields solutions that were unavailable during intense focused effort. Mental set is the tendency to approach new problems using strategies that worked for past problems. When a familiar strategy is deeply established, it can block us from seeing simpler or more effective solutions. Breaking mental set is often the first step toward creative problem solving. Functional fixedness is the tendency to see objects only in their typical functions, preventing creative use. If you need to tighten a screw and see only a coin rather than a screwdriver substitute, functional fixedness is at work. It narrows perception of possibilities to familiar categories. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for information that confirms our existing beliefs while ignoring contradictory evidence. It affects scientific reasoning, political judgment, interpersonal conflicts, and medical diagnosis alike. It is arguably the most pervasive and consequential of all cognitive biases. The availability heuristic estimates the probability of an event based on how easily examples come to mind. People overestimate the frequency of dramatic, memorable events, plane crashes, shark attacks, murders, and underestimate quiet, frequent causes of death like heart disease. Vivid examples distort probability judgment. The representativeness heuristic judges the probability that something belongs to a category based on how well it matches our prototype of that category. It leads to errors when base rates, the actual frequency of categories, are ignored. The classic Linda problem illustrates this bias dramatically. Overconfidence is the tendency to be more confident in our judgments than is warranted by accuracy. When people say they are 90% confident about answers, they are typically correct only about 70% of the time. Experts are not immune. In many domains, they are as overconfident as novices. Framing effects show that the same information presented in different ways produces different decisions. People choose a treatment described as having a 90% survival rate over one described as having a 10% mortality rate, even though these are identical. The frame, not the content, drives the choice. The anchoring effect occurs when an initial number or piece of information disproportionately influences subsequent estimates. A higher first offer in a negotiation, a randomly generated number before an estimate, all anchor subsequent judgments. The initial anchor is remarkably difficult to completely overcome.